Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's speaker series. Terry Omnibus, Terry Pivast, Terry Uptut, wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is the second series of speaker series, the second edition of speaker series we started last year, December. And we had a guest from TransferWise who talked with us, who chatted, we had a chat with us on how to get into the market, how to get into the workforce, especially with TransferWise. And we were informed that TransferWise will be recruiting about 700 people this year, and the large number of those recruits will come from Tallinn, Estonia specifically, because of the number, because of the space. Now, today we are going to look at something a bit different. Now, we know that we were told about how we can enter the workforce, what the recruiters are looking for, and how to get ourselves ready to take over these positions. And today we want to go a step further to help us because we came into Tallinn, we came into Europe. Most of us are in Europe, most of us are in Africa. Joining us from here, I can see a couple of them from Africa. And today what we're going to look at how we can fit into the market, the workforce, because every year things change. We have different requirements. We have things that the world is moving fast. And in order for us to position ourselves, we find it necessary to have this series today that's going to help us to make a shift from wherever we are to better fit and equip ourselves for the work ahead of us. So today, my name is Daniel Ita. I'm the president of African Students in Estonia, and this program is being hosted by Association of African Students here in Estonia, and it's meant for everybody, irrespective of your origin, wherever you come from. If you want to participate, you're highly welcome. Now, today we have two special guests, and for those of you, someone accosted me some time ago. You say, "Come on, you say you are the president, and how come I'm seeing another commercial on your website?" And they said his name is Chidubem. He said he's the president of African Students in Estonia. And I smiled and I said yes. He was one of the past leaders of African Students in Estonia, and the commercials are quite informative, and that's why we put it there on our website. Today, Chidubem is a web developer with GWorks, and he has a story. He has a movement where he's coming from. And we're here today, we're going to listen to him. He's going to guide us on how we can make that switch, because we all know that IT is like the fuzzy, what is reigning currently in Europe and globally. And then he is one man that his story is going to inspire us, and he's going to help us today to see how we can get the required information we need to be able to adjust into this workforce. Hi, his full name is Joshua Chidubem. Welcome, Joshua. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Thank you. Nice.
And how's everyone doing?
Good. Nice to have you around. And there's a man I always see, and each time I said, how can I see this man? How am I going to have an opportunity to meet this man? And coincidentally, he's also one of the past leaders in the Association of African Students in Estonia. He has made a name, he has carved a niche for himself. And today he is highly placed in Salv. And today he's going to take us through how to create a niche in whatever field other than IT. Yeah, IT is a paparazzi of the day, but he's here to tell us, based on his experience as well, on how we can create a niche, carve a niche for ourselves in other fields, not necessarily IT. And his name is Adekunle Idris. Welcome, Adekunle. You meet yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. How are you feeling?
Yes, today? I've done that. Yeah, I'm good. And you?
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Today, I have with me a very supportive vice president, a lady that we all depend on most of the time. And today she's going to anchor this session with me, and she's no other person than Grace Muchiri. Hi, Grace.
Hi, thank you. Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
All right, so I'm just going to go over a few ground rules for how we're going to go on with the session. First of all, thank you so much and welcome very much to our guests, Joshua and Adekunle, and for all who have attended, welcome very much. So for starters, I just request, and I can see almost everybody has had their mics off. That's just going to make sure we don't have any distractions as our speakers are talking, and we would like to have questions at the end. We'll have a Q&A session at the end for our speakers, but as they're speaking, if there's a question that comes to mind, please feel free to go on the chat section and just write it down. We will note it, and we're going to ask our speakers at the end. So our speakers are going to have about 10 to 15 minutes to give us a talk, but if they can make it less, the better. And in case they need a little bit more time, we will also have some grace on them, but not more than 20 minutes. But yeah, 10 to 15 or so. And so yeah, without further ado, if you have any questions until there, please feel free to write on the chat box, and allow me to just now invite Joshua. And as you've heard from the president, he is a web developer and very specialized in the IT field. But the thing that's interesting about him is that he transitioned into it from a different background. So a lot of us have been thinking about transitioning into IT, and we have a lot of questions. For starters, is it worth it? And also how do you do it? And Joshua is here to answer all those questions and anything else that we maybe have in mind. All right, Joshua, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. And okay, I've been put in this spotlight, but anyway, let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'll be talking about the way I structured it is just to give a general overview and then understanding the problems, and after which I will talk about the strategies that you can use, which is the strategy I use. I believe the questions will come regardless, so I would keep it quite simple, or quite short rather. Okay, so all right, so the overview is why and when is it essential to make the transition, right? But a bit about myself, I didn't have, the tech background. I studied international relations in Estonia, and eventually I moved to Finland. And having moved to Finland, it became quite like that without a job. Just to confirm.
Okay, Joshua, sorry to interject. We're having a bit difficulty hearing you clearly. It was clear at first, and we're having comments that the audio is bad. I mean, not just me, a couple of persons. It was clear at first, but we need to check very well.
Yep, most likely Bluetooth from experience. So if you have a code, perhaps you can just use that.
I suspect my Wi-Fi. Let me quickly make a switch. I probably will be disconnected. Let's see. Just to confirm, I'm still connected, and you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. It's clear.
Okay. All right. So I changed the Wi-Fi. Okay. So a bit about myself. I didn't have an IT background, although I had worked on a couple of websites in the past, using basic coding languages, but it wasn't, a career choice for me as a profession. So moving to Estonia, I studied international relations, which, it's in political science. And then afterwards, I moved to Finland, and it became apparent that without a specialist skills, it would be difficult to get into the job market in Finland. But most importantly, without the Finnish language, you will really struggle to get a job here in Finland. And think of the jobs that I never ever done in my life. Having left Nigeria, I did them here: house service, housekeeping, food delivery, delivering post letters. I did them all. But at some point, I had to make the decision, of changing the profession. And a couple of things that came to mind when I was going through this process, those time. A couple of points that came to my mind were who will be affected by this career shift that I'm making, right? I will be affected, first because it takes time, and it requires a lot of effort. So another concern was, what are the resources that are available to me? Can I go back to the school, to study tech? How much time do I have? And all of those, concerns. And then time and age. Time was essential. That at the time when I made the transition, it was the right time, because a lot of companies were already beginning to, seek out tech, basically programmers. And the age was on my side. I mean, I'm not that young. This year I will be 38. So I still believe that, I have, at the time, I had all the potentials, all the right, indices to make the switch. And then the final point was the perspective. You know, I needed to make a switch from how I see careers, looking at careers not just uh, as the order, but career as an investment. I'm sure many of us understand this because, coming from where we all came from and how much we have invested into making this career switch, coming to Europe. And then the strategy. The strategy which I used was I assessed, myself and what interests me. Over time, I had, you know, worked in different careers. Let's think about it. If you're washing plates in Finland, that's actually a career in itself. You know, if you are delivering food, it's a profession. If you are doing housekeeping, it's a profession. So for me, it was more like, putting things in perspective and saying to myself, how much time would it take me to transition from washing plates to actually, you know, writing codes? And I think this is applicable for every profession, we want to transition into. And the next thing I did was I began to seek out support. I began to get involved, looking for the people who currently have the skills that I desire. And also, you know, uh, I'm not sure how I'm going to put this, but speaking to the winds, more like what they call, you know, pulling the right vibes and energy to yourself. Speak to the winds. Speak to yourself. Tell people what you're doing. This have both good and bad side, because sometimes when you say that I'm a programmer, you kind of have that satisfaction, and then you end up not actually training to become a programmer. But for me, this worked in a different way, in the sense that I put it up on my LinkedIn saying, prospective developer, or aspiring developer. And each time I went to my LinkedIn, all of this motivated me to go back and practice. Another thing I did was I actually, or should I say, adequately assessed my current skills. Are the skills that I have enough to, transition me to the next phase? For instance, when we were in primary schools, if you don't understand basic maths, you would have problems in algebra and further mathematics, right? So it's the same thing. I needed to assess the skills that I currently had at the time, and how much was required to make the leap. And then I began to research. Since I had built the community, this network of friends who are already programmers, it became quite easy to, reach out to them and say, hey, what is the language? What should I be focusing on? What should I be looking at? And they were very helpful. So the community is also very important. And then, are you willing to make the sacrifice? Which also ties into the point that who will be affected, right? You'll be affected, because some of these tech skills are quite expensive when you want to get them. They cost not just in financial, costs, they have cost on your health, right? Sleepless nights, time you don't spend with your partner, and all of those things, they have cost, And then I think I already talked about time. So the next thing was, are you willing to volunteer? Are you willing to work for free? All of these things were what I adopted, and they helped me to make the transition. So the key points to have in mind is your network is very important. You have to consistently motivate yourself, which is, generally, these are like general stuffs in a way, if you look at them. But the way I approached it was to take them quite seriously and apply them as an important strategies. And they helped me. And I will quote what John Bogle said, which is the former CEO of Vanguard, one of the largest investment companies. He said, invest you must, right? Invest you must. And since I looked at this career shift or career transition as an investment, it became quite critical that I should invest whatever is necessary to make it happen. And after you have done all of these things that I did, then, like myself, you can say goodbye to your current career. I hope I'm on time.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
You have definitely that time. Go on.
Okay. Thank you, Joshua. Yes, Grace, please.
Thank you very much.
I want to throw it back to the audience if there's anyone who has a question until there, to just keep sending in. But if not, don't worry. We still have time to the. Yeah, I see somebody saying that they've totally had you, Joshua. All right, so I'll give it to the president to invite the next speaker. Oh, you're muted, Danny.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. That was a bump. I mean, we'll get there when the time comes to talk about it. And but we want to take the two together so that we can so that we won't have to dwell on one aspect at all through the day. So please, Adekunle Idris is one man that when you get close to him, you know that you've met someone. I mean, when you have someone, if he doesn't leave a positive impression in you, then you've not met Adekunle. Adekunle Idris, please just tell us, for those of us, because basically what Joshua just told us, that we will have to be extremely disciplined. I mean, if we must transition, we have to be extremely disciplined. And in terms, other factors are also considered. We have to consider other factors, the odds. Now, on your own side, for those of us who, for the one, never had flair for the IT, how can you tell us? Please just lead us in give us how you made it and how we can do it as well. How we can create a niche from something other than, even if it's still in IT, you can still create a niche even in IT. So thank you, Adekunle. Please, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I consider it a rare privilege to be speaking to every one of us here today. It's a privilege, not that I've become a master for it. So we're just privileged to be sharing from what we know, what we've experienced, and the things we've handled, basically. And if you're talking about trying to create a niche for oneself other than IT, like you don't have the flair for IT, the first thing I try to ask is, have you even tried it out? I tried to code personally. I was on free code camp, did HTML. I was like, oh, easy peasy. And then started with CSS. And I'm like, okay, this thing is not for me. I just discovered it that I'm not that person that wants to sit behind a computer, talk to nobody, and be grinding it out with a computer, putting input and then getting output. I discovered that is not my person. And as a result of that, I decided to move away from programming in that sense. So that was my little experience with it. So if you are someone who has found yourself in my own kind of shoes, the first advice is to know what you want. Basically, what do you want? What is that your ultimate career choice? I came to Estonia as a chemical engineer, and then I did my master's in material science, materials and processes of sustainable energetics. And after that, I looked around to get a job in ST Energia, which was one of the companies that drove me to Estonia, that, oh, if I finish my master's, I can work with them. I needed to have Estonian, I think, at B2 level, B1 level rather, to even get a job with them. And as at the time I graduated, I was at A1 level. So all those challenges just came. I'm like, okay, it seems there is no way on this side. So what next? So don't be afraid to actually make a switch you found yourself in an environment that is tech driven. Perhaps the companies that are most favorable to apply to, that are most forward thinking in Estonia, are also tech companies, not the traditional companies. Most of the traditional companies have their work based on Estonian language. And if you get in there, you will just understand. I've worked with one of them before. Like you will just know that, okay, they speak Estonian like the communication language. Even the systems can be based in Estonian in that sense. So don't be afraid to make a switch. And while making a switch, there are jobs that only add money to your bank accounts, nothing significant to take away from them. So don't settle with those jobs. She just shared how he had to do some stuff, deliver postie and all those things. Yes, there are careers, taking care of a house or something, cleaning. Yeah, it's a career for people, but I don't see it as a career for those of us who have made this kind of journey. You've paid tuition, that should not be your career. So those are just to add money to your bank account. So it's something to take note of, those kind of jobs, that there are jobs that we have that we should not settle with because they are not career jobs for us. And also start from where you are. I know it's possible you've done some things wherever you came from, and then you're eyeing that similar position. Maybe you were at a managerial level in your country before you came to Estonia to do your master's. And you're thinking, oh, you're always searching for the manager jobs, or seniority level for those jobs are like mid level or something. My brothers and sisters, it doesn't work that way. You may need to just go down low first so that you can rise up within the organization. So start from where you are. It could just be customer support. Just get into the company. That's the first thing. That is, you are in the workforce. That is, your name is registered in a company. It could be custom. I started with customer support in TransferWise. And apparently, I had a team lead who asked me, because by default, I was just assigned to the referrals team, the team responsible for referrals. And having worked there, I told myself, I'm not staying with this team. And after my probation, I told my team lead, I don't want to do referrals. I'm going to the business team. Like, oh, the head of the business is my friend. And she talked to him, he talked to me, and I moved to the business team, the business support team. Like, I didn't want to stay in the general customer support. And that was how I moved, because I had an idea that, okay, in this company, I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. Which side can I go to? Maybe business development can work. Where do I start from there? Let me go to business support or something like that. And for me, that was it. And while trying to cross into business development within TransferWise, applied the first time, it didn't work out. Haven't gotten to the final stage, the third stage of interview. Like, I had 3 interviews to the final stage of it. It didn't work out. But I learned some things along the way. So another thing is to learn from the failures that we encounter. You just know that, okay, at this level, it seems they're looking for something much more than I have. How can I develop it? How do I improve on what I have? And another thing that we ought to do is to take on new challenges. Take on new challenges. Remember, start from where you are. Starting small help you to build resilience for setbacks, because you know you're on the right path, but it didn't just work out this time. Then you can always refresh, re-strategize, and then move on. Then you take on new challenges. This will require you to perhaps take on new skills. Sometimes it is getting those new challenges that will require you to acquire new skills, not that you acquire skills and then moved on to new challenges. Sometimes it's just an opportunity, such as I had in TransferWise, and then it was just a side project, basically working with the verification team. And 3, 4, I think I was on that side project for over 6 months, helping them with verification. And verification team was actually working, but we wanted it to be more proactive, and 2 of us volunteered for that side project. So we're actually verifying business customers proactively by email support and also phone calls. So then we initiated it that, hey, we could just call up a business, tell them what is holding up their verification, and get them verified. And talk with such authority that, hey, if you want your business to be verified right now, I can do it for you. I just need you to provide this and this and that for me. And that's what myself and one other fellow we're actually doing. So we're spending about 80% of our time on that, while 20% on business support. And from that, I had experience in verification. And then I moved to EDD, which is actually a step further than CDD in that sense. And it means I was now verifying high risk customers, offshore customers, and high value accounts in that sense. So it was a new challenge. I needed to learn some things new, but I had to take advantage of the opportunities. So there are times opportunities just pass by and then just look at it that it's not me. I don't have the competence for this. I learned all those things at TransferWise. I didn't take all those knowledge to TransferWise. I learned them from there. So if we find ourselves in organizations, and one of the regrets that I had before leaving TransferWise was that I refused to be a team lead. So if you're in a company or something, as a matter of fact, I was persuaded to be a team lead. I said no, not because I can't do it, but because I just had my eyes somewhere else. Like I'm eyeing this position. These guys want to tie me down with being a team lead. I don't want to be tied down with such responsibilities. But I later recognized that it was a massive opportunity for me at that point. At that point, I didn't know it because I felt it was going to tie me down being a team lead. Like, I don't just want to be a team lead. I'm eyeing something else. So if we find ourselves in companies that are growing, startups are booming in Estonia and the likes, and then the first thing that happens is that teams are formed and then team leads, it's always like a wave. As at then, it was like pure water in TransferWise. Do you want to become a team lead? Yeah. People that I trained became team lead. I didn't want to become one. So we could find ourselves in such companies. So let's open our eyes to these opportunities. Let's recognize them and then do that. And from EDD, I found myself in another company at Salv, and it was the knowledge from Salv that Salv was looking at. Okay, we need customer success managers, but we need people that have background in compliance. So it was my background in compliance. So if there is anything, so look at it. If there is anything that is just any job that is just adding money to your bank account, that is not equipping you with skills that can be relevant in one industry or the other. I never had Salv in mind when I was doing EDD in TransferWise. So those are the skills. Those are the things that would actually prepare you. Before leaving TransferWise, a company contacted me on LinkedIn and they were asking me, hey, do you want to join us and this and that? We need someone with your skill set in compliance. So yours may not even be compliant. It could be something else. It could be SEO. It could be, and these are areas where you just need to identify what you like in that sense and then go with it. And finally, just before the final point, equip yourself with the skills needed for your dream career. My dream is not to be a customer success manager. My dream career is to be a product manager. So while I'm doing all this, I'm still equipping myself in that line that yes, I want to be a product manager. What am I following? I'm deliberate about it, and you have to be deliberate about it. I know the groups I have to join on LinkedIn where they are discussing product management. I know I have to follow product school, listening to webinars from product managers, how some of them switched from being programmers into product management, how some of them even switched from non-tech related roles at all into product management, how some of them even became accidental product managers. So finally, don't lose your dream. You see, because we are doing something when customer support or you are working with a betting company or something like that, you don't lose that dream. Let that picture remain there because that is what will keep driving you. The moment you lose it and you just believe, oh, this is where you are and you can't make progress from here, or you are not even in the company of your dream, then you start losing it. But don't lose it. Don't let your present predicament make you lose your target, in that sense. So you found yourself in a situation, maybe you're even washing plates, you don't even have customer support job, but start showing interest in that area. Be deliberate about the groups you join on LinkedIn. Start following people on LinkedIn. Start taking courses. You know, there's a way you will even take online courses and you will build your profile on LinkedIn such that you won't need to put that you are washing dishes on your LinkedIn. You don't need to, nobody should even put that in their profile, that you're washing dishes. No. But the courses you're doing, it's showing your interest basically, and you are increasing in knowledge. And when the opportunity comes, it is just one time that that opportunity will come. You never know the day it will come. So keep preparing for it. And if you have questions, perhaps we can discuss further.
Wow, thank you, thank you. I said that the impression is going to be a lasting one. Now, for those of us who heard he mentioned EDD, EDD means enhanced due diligence. Um, okay, recruiters from TransferWise told us that one quality they look for in prospective employees, passion. People who have passion for what they do. And Adekunle made mention about knowing what you want. Now, if you want to go into code, you say IT is hard. Have you tried to learn it? Have you tried to go into it to know that you can do it or not? So first thing first, I think if I should understand you, you're now saying that we should focus, identify a place that we have passion about, if an aspect where we have passion about, and focus developing ourselves towards achieving that. Now, I came across a couple of persons, and you know that some of us are not here because we have to put money in the bank. And then I asked, "What's your dream after school?" It takes a couple of minutes for someone to respond. So, which means some are after put the money in the bank account. Now, how can we create? How can we motivate people to identify? How can we help people identify their area of interest where they need to develop? I mean, some of us at times we need people to guide us in order to make an informed decision. So how can we do that? Adekunle.
Okay. From my personal experience, what I did was basically I didn't need to pay anyone because I felt paying for a course and then opting out halfway doesn't make sense. So there is a free place to actually do that. If you want to know whether you would even enjoy coding at all, just go to Free Code Camp and start coding today. That's the way they put it there. And start coding, basically. Yeah, you may get through HTML within 2-3 days, depending on how dedicated you are to it. But the moment you start CSS, yeah, and the fact that you experience challenges along the way doesn't mean that it's not what you're supposed to do. It's not going to be easy. So the fact that it's difficult doesn't mean, oh, this is not for me. Do you get it? Like, oh, you experience difficulties and then immediately you pull back from it. So that's not, it's actually to assess yourself. For me, I assessed myself and I saw that I'm not that person that wants to sit behind a computer and then code all day. I love to interact with people, and I started looking for roles. So initially, when I joined TransferWise, I was like, "Oh, business development. That's where I'm going. Like customer success and account management, business development. That's what I want to do there." And that framed my decision to join the business support team rather than staying in the general customer support team. But while in TransferWise, most especially when I started doing side projects, I I was working more with product managers and then engineers on a side project. That was when my eyes opened to product management. So there are some things that are even very fitting for us that we would so much like to do, but we've not even experienced it. I didn't know there was a profession like product management until I joined TransferWise. And until like more than a year, like over a year into my journey in TransferWise. So there are some things that we don't even know about that we will find ourselves there. And that's why it is very good to just get yourself into the system, even if it is at customer support level. Then you open your eyes to SEO. It was in TransferWise that I got to know about SEO. But I said, no, this is not me. I can't be doing this. This is not, even though yes, I like to write a little bit, but I said, no, this is not me. And I found that, okay, I'm more interested in this product management side, got closer to product managers and got talking with them. So if we get ourselves into organizations, most especially if it is startups, let's take up side projects because they will reveal more of ourselves to us than what we even know in that sense. So there is exposure, basically. I think that's the best way to summarize everything that I've said. Exposure through on-the-job experience. And if you don't have that opportunity to maybe work in a company where you have that exposure here, then you can start doing a self-assessment. Look at jobs, look at their criteria. You can troubleshoot your career basically. Go on LinkedIn, look at the jobs that they are posting there, and start looking at the requirement. What is required to actually take up this role? Do I have it? It seems I like the kind of requirements that are needed for this particular kind of jobs. So I think this is my line. So let me start investing in it.
Okay, before Grace will read the questions we have on the chats for you to respond. You made mention of SEO, and Joshua will tell you that SEO means search engine optimization. I mean, so is that what you're referring to as SEO?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right, Grace.
So it's actually a career that there are people who are just SEO, content, and all those things, copywriting. They all flow in a particular direction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I missed a bit of it because my internet got disconnected. And that means that I do not have the questions that I saw Nelson had sent earlier on, and Alan, and probably somebody else. So if you could please, Danny, just read it out. But we have here Rachel saying, very true, sir. I think it was to a statement that you said, Adekunle, start from somewhere and grow from there. I think a lot of people can agree with yourself and Joshua that you just need to start from somewhere. Yeah. So Daniel, please read out the questions. I think it was from Nelson and from Alan, and just in case there's any other, but the first was from Nelson. Ego.
Alan first. Okay, Nelson said that my question is, this is to Joshua. Did you go for certification course or start a BSc afresh?
Okay, so the way I approached it was certification is very important, especially when you're going for this kind of skills that companies would want some validation from you. But I didn't let that deter me at first. So I just started using all resources, including the one Mr. Kunle already mentioned, Free Code Camp. I was also using Udemy. And the funny thing is that Udemy already gives you certification. So you can actually put up your Udemy certification on your LinkedIn account. There's also this company called SoloLearn. It's an app. It's very, very easy to use. And when you complete a particular programming language, they give you a certification. So what I also did in addition to these two certifications was to register for Helsinki Business College. So they had this tech, basically full stack program, which I did. I mean, it was not that useful for me, but I needed to go through it because of that certification. And finally, I mentioned internship. I did an internship with a company. It's a tech company. Basically worked for them for free. They had this 4 months boot camp program, 2 months for the training, and then 2 months for the to work for them. But it's all internship, and I did that, and they also gave certification. So yeah, but the key thing is not to get engulfed into certification, and not focus on the skills, because the skills is very important. I've met people who don't have certifications, but they are working as a professional developers. And also, if you don't look at certifications so much, one strategy you can also adopt is to break things into component parts and see which is the easiest one you can focus on. I think Mr. Kunle mentioned it. Go for the easiest one, conquer that, and then look for the next one. Because if you think of the whole thing as a whole, there are chances that it can overwhelm you.
Wow, awesome. There was also a question from Alan.
Yeah, Alan said, was it because of the IT industry that inspired you, or your peers, or because of the future that is why you switched? Still, Joshua?
That's a very smart and intelligent question, I must say. So there's so many factors. My first time of touching the keyboard and computer, interacting with the computer, was in 1993. This was way, way back. And then again in 1997, my elder sister went into Fortran, the old programming language. It wasn't until 2001 that I registered myself and paid from the penny that I got at the time to learn computer science, basically desktop publishing. But something happened along the way, and for a long period of time, I was disconnected from tech. The reason why I gave this history is because uh, I had always been, futuristic and ambitious in what I want to do, and that had started for a long period of time. So in a way, it is tied to the future, what I want to do, because the reality is that in the future, I don't want a situation whereby my kid is going to ask me a question in tech and I will have nothing to offer at all, especially now that everything is going digital, right? You don't want to be left out. Peer pressure, I actually leveraged on peer pressure, particularly looking at those friends who are pressuring me, but actually have those skills themselves, right? So it's not the peer pressure to force me into tech, but the peer pressure to motivate me and inspire me to become a developer. And the final one was, okay, which is not mentioned, money. Yes, the money is a big motivating factor. Uh, if you want to be successful in any career, you need to motivate yourself, right? Because nobody's going to motivate you. Nobody's going to like come to you and give you all of those words. At some point, like Mr. Kunle mentioned, you would encounter these times that you will feel this is so miserable. This is so, it's so difficult. And it's the peer pressure your network and your, inner motivation for yourself that can get you past those phase or that phase.
Mhm. Wonderful. I hope, Alan, you've gotten your response out as well detailed. Thank you so much, Joshua. There's still another question for you. And Nelson says it's kind of personal, but I think it's important. Can you say change in career made you a happier person in terms of your career journey?
The answer is an overwhelming yes. I just got back from Austria, and the company was willing to do everything they can to get me a permit there over there in Austria. Unfortunately, the government was stricter, and they didn't allow my university degree, which is in political science. In the German nations or German-speaking nations, uh, they are very strict when it comes to giving jobs to people who don't have the skills in those fields. But I I moved back to Finland, and before I got back to Finland, I already have a job waiting for me in Finland. So this is always the case. Like if you look at what the job market has to offer, and you leverage on that, chances are the opportunities will be there for you. Let's not forget that there was a time that in Nigeria, business management was the talk of the day, and then there was this time it was banking and finance. What the government was doing at the time was to mass produce a skills because uh, a demand for it, right? So currently in Finland and in Europe, like Daniel already mentioned, there is a demand, right? Uh, in some cases, unfortunately, the institutions are not mass producing the skills to meet these demands. So it is left for us, to look at what skills are the jobs requiring or requesting for, and empower ourselves so that we can meet these demands. And the reward is just, unspeakable.
Well, I like your word, use of word conspicuable. So we have thank you so much for that, Joshua. We have a question from Kule, so I'll go right ahead. My question about job hunting for someone that doesn't want to go for IT career but wants to remain in their existing career but have had so many failed attempts in applying for a job. What alternative can you advise us to use to get our foot into the market, since it seems like our current CV isn't working for us? That's by Kule.
Yep. In that sense, I found myself in this situation as well. And I don't know, some of you perhaps may laugh about this, but I think in my final year, while rounding up, I applied to one of the IOCs in Nigeria, one of the international oil companies, like I think it was Mobile, because Mobile, if you have a master's degree, that's like your application gets a better chance. That's if you're not going through the graduate training program. So I applied, and so even while in Estonia, because there are no oil companies, yeah, studied chemical engineering. Or the dream then was to work for either Mobile, Shell, or Chevron. So, and there is no Mobile in Estonia, neither is there Chevron or Shell. So what do I do? Basically, it's just to, I had to tailor my CV. I had to convince employers, because when they see on my CV, and then I applied for customer support, and your our CVs can be intimidating sometimes, most especially when we decide to go low a bit, because you have a master's degree, then it's chemical engineering, your bachelor's, and then master's in sustainable energetics, and then you're applying for customer support, and the person interviewing you doesn't even have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them are just doing their bachelor's. Do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it has to do with a lot of convincing. That's why I said, don't be afraid to make that switch. For me, I needed to make that turn. Otherwise, is to get out of Estonia, because I I really wanted to work as an engineer. Like, I haven't done 5 years of chemical engineering in Nigeria, and 2 years, yes, 7 years of my kind of engineering, then going to customer support. So first of all, you just need to be deliberate about the switch. Know you want to make a switch, even though you have that big picture. But in Estonia, you have to pay the bills. You need to take care of yourself. So the first thing is that, yes, that you have that job, and then you can start thinking you have more flexibility. That, oh, I don't want to continue in this particular path. I want to move into this path. And that's what we have to do. And just be as convincing as possible when you go to the interview. Don't make it seem as if, well, this is all that is available, and then I'm just taking it because there's nothing else. Let them know that you want that job, that you want to work in that sector. And once you get in, then opportunities. And there is something about these companies. There was a time I applied for a position. I think it was at Verif, and it was account management position while at TransferWise. I applied there, and my application wasn't successful. They didn't even invite me. They didn't even give me a take-home test. I was like, no, I know when I apply, like I should get something to do. Like, even if it is show face interview, let me show myself first. And then later it didn't get successful. They just replied that it wasn't successful and the likes. And then someone that I know in TransferWise, who had moved from our business development team to Veri's business development team, I just reached out to him on LinkedIn that, hey, this position, what happened? I applied and they didn't get back to me. And he told me straight away that, hey, he found out that this position is being recruited for internally, but they just advertise it. And I was like, so why did they put it on LinkedIn? If you are recruiting this position internally, why did you put it on? I was angry with them. Like, you made me waste my time writing a new application letter, tailoring my CV to meet with this role, and then you are recruiting internally for it. But for those who are inside, it means they have such opportunities. So there are some roles that you see on LinkedIn, they're actually recruiting for them internally. So the reason they rejected you is not because you're not qualified, it's because they are considering internal candidates. And how do you get in? Perhaps in some cases from the bottom, customer support.
Thank you so much. Thank you. There's another question for Chi Josh, and if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask the question, you could go ahead. So this one reads, can you name some of these websites you can learn from and the certificate awarded? I think you had mentioned Udemy earlier on, but perhaps,
Yes.
yeah.
Udemy is one of them. Solo Learn, I will put the link in the chat. Solo Learn, Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp is very extensive. And yeah, this three, Solo Learn, Udemy, and LinkedIn. I don't know how much time we have though, but let me quickly chip in this point. With Free Code Camp, there is something that Free Code Camp did that every other learning platform didn't have. Free Code Camp have. So what they have is, if you are taking front end, they put it there how many what is it? Is it ECTs or is it hours? Oh, so it's how many hours it's going to take you to complete a particular program, right? So when you check it, you can already say to yourself, you can already measure how much time it's going to take you, right? Say for instance, the front end, they have 300 hours, right? So how many hours do you have in a day if you divide it? So what I did was I was very practical, right? Very, very practical. And if you approach it this way, you will be able to complete some of these courses, as with I mean, considering your time, your own busy schedule, right? But like Mr. Kunle said, if it's not your passion, right, there's always this problem that you may not be able to, continue, because programming can be very boring. You're not speaking with somebody, you're just typing codes, which is why the community is very important. Build a community of programmers that you guys can speak and understand each other and have some kind of romantic relationship with the codes.
Well said. So there's no questions in the chat box, but I see David seems to have a question. Go ahead, David.
Jesus, please, what do you people used to talk about when you're having a romantic coding conversation? But thank you so much for everything. It's been awesome. I think that has been my excuse over time. As you know me, I'm into camera things, and that's where I think my intelligence get to. But I'm always asking myself the question, like, which one? There are so many. You guys have mentioned in WWSSSL, SSQ, and so on and so forth. So just assume that I was under the rock for a long time, and I just got out and say I want to get into it. So in your own best knowledge, where would you advise that I go first? What do I start with? And then begin to progress from that point on.
Is the question is meant for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So uh, you can look at it this way. The web is so large, right? That it can accommodate any profession you can think about, including video production, right? And there are companies that are offering tailored services for video editing and video production. I mean, think about it. Swedbank, SAB Bank. These are banks, but they have websites where you can actually transact, make savings, push money, remove money, make everything you want to do, right? So the web is so big that you can always find a niche that fits what you want to do. The way I approached it was to put aside what I want to do, what I love to do, which is teaching and training, right? And then learn, because if I have to teach, then I have to learn, right? And I started to learn like I want to teach. So this was how it was possible for me. I love interacting with people. I love, like meeting people. But that was my approach, right? And then start from the easiest thing. A free code camp is so difficult because the first time I tried free code camp, which is an excellent, resource, it was so difficult, right? Go down, start from solo. Solo learning is very easy. Like it tells, and you have huge community in solo learning. They even have an app, right? Try solo learn, and then another thing is know the language you want to learn. This is one of the biggest problem people have, and it's not surprising that it's a big problem, because there are thousands of programming languages out there. So you begin to wonder, which language do I actually learn? Should I learn Python? Should I learn JavaScript? Right? The way I approached it was to see what language is used for what. Programming language as a tool to solve a particular problem, right? So if you approach that way, you begin to see that some languages are useless in some aspects, but very powerful in some aspects. Take for instance Python and Ruby. Super powerful when it comes to data analysis, machine learning, artificial intelligence. But bring it to website development, it looks so petty, right? Then you begin to look at JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript, so powerful for the web. Literally everything your browser does is just JavaScript, right? So take it down, the foundation, the language, what service, what purpose does this language serve? And then you begin to see, the bigger picture.
Wonderful. I feel like I've learned a bit of IT.
Yeah, I think her network is freezed. And okay, before we pick this, I mean, we've exhausted our time, 1 hour. The program is meant to last for 1 hour, and we have spent 1 hour already. So please, if anyone has any other thing to say, kindly unmute yourself and say. If you have anything to say, unmute yourself, and in the next couple of seconds, we will run this thing up. But if I should recap what we've like as a take home, motivation, self-motivation is essential for you to succeed. Whether you want to create a niche or you want to go into the IT sector, you have to be self-motivated. And then you have to create a network, because motivation, you may likely cannot, you may need people around do the same thing. Like you said, she just when you go to your, I don't know, so when you go to your LinkedIn, you see how many people that have visited you. I mean, it gives you that kind of morale that you want. I mean, I can speak for myself as well. And the last session we had was give me more reasons why I should be focused. And I did some projects and I put on LinkedIn. For the first time, I have about 3,000, 4,000 people viewing one thing I did on LinkedIn. So, I mean, when I see that, I said, no. I mean, my friends understand. I said, no, I have to go back. I have to burn the candles. I mean, I have to stay up late to get this thing done with. And also, you have to be sure that's what he wants. I mean, you should have passion for whatever you want to go to, not because people are going. And that's the reason we brought this two persons to resource persons to lead us. If you want to go for IT, beautiful. If you don't want to go for IT, you can also create a niche. And that's what we, so you have to identify, whatever you have passion for. Like David asked a question and gave a great answer. Even in what you're doing, there can be people, there can be organizations seeking that specific skill, but then you need to do more. You have to search out, look for. Also, can currently, there are lots of recruitment online currently. There are lots of recruitment at the moment in Europe. Globally, there are lots of recruitment. I mean, lots of recruitment. So why don't you go in? So what we have been told now, just go in, check that which you feel you have flair for and develop yourself towards it. And also, please, from what we learned from the last resource persons, don't go and write something in your CV that you don't have. Because here in Europe, it is what you can do. And if you say you can do this, they say, come and do, let's see. So whatever you know you can do, you can develop it and then make create a niche out of it, either in IT or something other than IT. And then also you have to try to code. I mean, if you said code is difficult, how do you know it's difficult? Have you tried it? And then if you tried it and you want to give up, are you giving up because it's difficult for you, or it's not doable, or you're lazy? And but one thing I've come to understand in Europe is that there's no place for idleness. There's no place for laziness. If you must create a niche in whatever field you are, then you have to bond them. You have to stay up late. If you want to go into IT, you have to sacrifice a lot of time. Like when I came in first semester, I had a lot of programs. I had an offer to run an IT for 6 months without working. And then I was like, how can that be? I have a family, I'm a student, I have school fee, I have studies to. I tried for first 2 weeks, I gave up at that moment. I said, no, this have to wait because it affected my studies. So you have to identify, try whatever you want to try. I mean, there's no harm in trying. God's so kind. I mean, they've seen a lot of documents, website here being recommended for us to visit and see how we can develop, identify whatever the area we like and develop ourselves. So do not be afraid to switch. Now, some of us, we are comfortable where we are, but then the purpose, the what from what Adekunle said, you should have the end game. Where do you want to end? Then start somewhere. Wherever you are, then take that leap of faith, take that step and keep moving until you get to that destination which you actually say. Don't lose your dream, seek knowledge. So, and at every point in time, we have to keep learning, or to keep developing. I mean, there are open source everywhere for us to learn. So, and as your final thought, Adekunle, obviously we don't have questions. Okay, someone says, okay, just HTML is the easiest to test the waters. Okay. Okay. Please, for a newbie in tech or programming, what is the easiest language to start? Okay, that's why we have that. You say HTML is the easiest to test the waters. And let's see if we have. Okay, can you name some of the websites you can learn from I guess certificates awarded, student learning. Okay. Um, okay. As a final thought, Adekunle, what will you say? I mean, you've been here with us. You know what we are facing. We know what we are passing through. There is academics. There's the need to balance with family. Some of us are family people, and also there is need for us to develop, to create a niche for ourselves. What will you say? How do you think in a few sentences? How can we approach this to balance so that academics will not suffer?
Oh, well, for me, I think this also goes to an individual level. There are people who perhaps the academics is actually too demanding for them, and then having a job on the side becomes challenging. I know Chijosh and I we worked in the same place at Avato at that time, and we are working full time student, full time workers, and so it depends on individuals in that. So it's just basically man know yourself. If you can't work full time somewhere, then part time. But I think the most important thing that I would like to, and uh, that actually was behind me sending this Google document to help people uh, tailor their CV, prepare for interviews. So there are useful links in that document that can help us with our CV interviews and the likes, writing your personal statement on LinkedIn and the likes. And this is because a number of us have not even found ourselves in the industry. We've not even found ourselves in the lowest position in the industry, which I consider to be very, very vital. If you're starting a journey, you just need to be at the starting point. So right now, some are not even at that starting point, which I feel is perhaps the most important thing. Once you get in, then it's always up to you from that point. Your brain will open up to things. You see how things are done. But if you are still on the outside, that is, you don't have that job yet, then it's difficult. And I understand the challenges in this space. So the most important thing is to actually get in. Please, if you get a job offer, don't say you finish your study. That job offer is very, very important. But especially if it is something that will open doors to other things for you, not the one that is just adding money to your bank account alone. So those are my final words. Use the documents I've shared and do your best to just get in, even if it is at customer support level, and you'll have more to work with from there.
Well said.
Okay, Joshua, and your field is most difficult to switch over because it takes time, and you need to spend the hours equivalent to an undergraduate for you to be able to succeed in that field. Like I said, I use myself as an example. I had a course that suffered a semester. From my first semester here, a course suffered because during that period, once you wake up, I love anything manipulations, data. I love data manipulations. So I can spend 24 hours on my decks but than spending 12 hours trying to read some notes like that. So at the time, I was carried that when I wake up, I sit down here. The only thing I do is to eat, and then the cost suffered. Now, how can we balance this? How can people who want to make this switch uh, into IT, how can we balance this? Because I mean, most of us here are still students. How can we do that to succeed so that in Europe, students specifically, if you want to be comfortable, then you need to be a professional, not only IT. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So the way I will answer that is to give my personal experience. So in 2001, I did desktop publishing, and then I stopped. In 2009, I did HTML, and I stopped. In 2014, I did SPM, software product management, then I stopped. But in 2018, I became very serious because my life and my ambition, everything depends on making the career switch. So there was no opting out. So what I would say to that is persistence is very important. Persistence. If I had persisted in 2001, I would probably be veteran developer at this time, right? So persistence is very important. even though you are not going to, use it as a job, you can find other reasons why you can use the skills, right? And if you're persistent at it, eventually you would get it, right? If all you do, like, every 1 minute every day, is write a single line of code, in 1 year you become professional in that programming language, right? So just be persistent, and to balance it with whatever you're doing, which is very important, to your survival and existence here in Europe. Just look for how much time is needed to complete to you can dedicate 5 minutes of every day, right? If you write JavaScript 5 minutes every day for 1 year, eventually you will understand it, right? So this is how I think you can balance work and career shift life.
Wow. I think that's a very good example. Thank you for sharing your personal experience. As for me, all I can say is thank you so much. I feel like you really have shared in detail your experiences, each of you. And I can attest that almost everybody here, or if not everyone, can agree that they've left with something, a bit of direction with regards to their own personal journey in terms of their career. So thank you so much, Adekunle Idris and Joshua. So I'll hand this back to Daniel, who can proceed with closing the meeting.
Okay. For the guest speakers, and I mean, we're indeed grateful for your time and the resources. I mean, Fridays at this times in Europe, very, very essential time. Now, it takes only people that are ready to sacrifice. And for the show of love, the sacrifice you've given. Because I mean, best definitely you don't understand that, like Joshua, you've worked for free in the course of trying to learn. So that's a sacrifice that you've shared with us. So we need to know that the current bank account is not as important as the future bank account. So thank you, and thank you, Adekunle, and for the guests, thank you for your questions, thank you for your contributions. And what we try to do is to be sure to ensure that we don't get involved too long in doing some things that are below our standards, and to get us settled and live a fulfilled life. And that is the essence of this program. And from those of you, you've not seen the recordings. If you're a member if you're a member of the association, please go to the Facebook. You see recordings of the last session, and the recording of this session as well made available for those who could not attend. But what we need is that we need your feedback. Feedback is very essential, and we need to know, we need to motivate others. So for what you've learned in this platform, there's a need for us to share so that others can learn, and so that we can know that the essence of this program is yielding positive. So we're going to get back to you for those of you that attended for your feedbacks on how to approach this. And next month, by God's grace, we promise there's going to be even better. I mean, for you can attest from what we learned from last month and what we learned today. I mean, we're going to make an exploit. Thank you very much, and do have a nice weekend. See you. Nagamist.
Nagamist, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.